Hey guys, today I want to review for you the highly requested Georgio Armani Luminous Silk foundation. So I got myself 3 shades in this foundation. Again, finding a shade wasn't really that easy. When I tried to use online resources to figure out what shade match I will be, it kept showing up with shade 6. Everywhere I looked, it was like shade 6, shade 6, shade 6. Unfortunately, shade 6 is a little bit too cool and a little bit too olive for my skin tone. Hey guys, so while I was editing this video, I realized that actually none of those 3 shades work on me. I can wear all 3 if I apply a sheer amount of foundation, but if I build it up, it becomes very obvious that all 3 aren't really a good match. All 3 of them are actually a little bit light. There's undertone issues as well. So I then stopped my editing, went to Sephora because I didn't want to let you down. I really wanted to find a shade match, especially because so many of you have reached out and asked me what my shade is in the Armani foundation. So I went and picked up shade 7.5 and 7.75. So I've actually just come back from Sephora and I've just got a little bit of concealer and that's it. So I'm going to apply this and then we'll take a look to see whether these shades are now going to work for me, because if these don't, then that is it. It's game over. There isn't really a shade match in the range for me. One of these 2 doesn't work. Let's find out. So first I'm going to pick up 7.5. It looks very warm, so I'm a little bit concerned, but we'll find out. By the way, I had a look at the entire shade 6 range and the entire 7s, and this is it. These were the 2 shades. Everything else was either too pink based or too deep and too warm. This is what 7.5 looks like on my skin, and now I'm just going to blend it out. I feel like this shade is a little bit too peachy. Definitely doesn't have the right undertone, but it doesn't look bad. So obviously this is my skin color, and then this is what the shade looks like. Now let me pop on the other shade. So this next shade is 7.75, and this is one of the shades that actually one of you on Instagram told me about, and I am hoping that this is going to be it. It does look a bit deep in the pot. Ooh, I think this might be it. I am applying more than I normally would, because when you build up that coverage, that's when you can really tell if the foundation is going to work for you or not. Okay, so this is shade 7.75. Yeah, this is it. 7.75 is most definitely a better match for my skin tone than all the other shades that I've been trying. Yeah, finding a shade match in Georgio Armani has not been easy. This is it. It has enough warmth to work with my skin, and even though it looks quite deep in the pan, it works perfectly. You can see that even the color of my forehead right here, this side of my face matches really well with the color of my forehead, whereas this one really doesn't. Janice, if you're watching, thank you so much for recommending this shade, because to be honest, I don't think I would have picked up this shade if you hadn't mentioned it. It looks, when I swatched it in store, it looked pretty deep, and I think that's what really trips me up in this foundation range is I feel like the way these shades swatch and then the way you apply them is a little bit different. I don't know. What I can tell you is that absolutely 7.75 is my shade match. I am very happy that Janice's recommendation was really spot on. Thank you, Janice. And I'm gonna build up a little bit more because I really want you to see the coverage. So just going to apply more than what I normally would. Now I have my damp beauty blender. So this foundation, you can absolutely use a brush with it, but it really has the most beautiful finish with a damp sponge. If you're interested in this foundation, I highly recommend you try it out with a damp sponge. I definitely prefer the finish of this foundation with a sponge than with a foundation brush, but it still looks pretty good with a foundation brush. So it's not like you can't use it. Of course you can. And I'm just going to apply that all over my face. As you can see, it blends in really easily into the skin. I have to only gently pat my skin and the formula just melts right in. So I love the texture of this foundation. Very easy to blend. It also doesn't dry. So for some foundations, they dry very quickly. You can actually take your time with it because it's not going to sit on your skin and just dry very quickly. Coming in a bit closer, this is what the foundation looks like. It really has a very beautiful finish. It looks pretty smooth on the skin, and it's giving me a slightly dewy finish because I have a hydrating base underneath. So I'm using a very hydrating moisturizer, which is why you can see all this shine on my skin. Now, in terms of my dry patch, this foundation does cling a little bit to my dry patch, but if I do use a damp beauty blender, then that clinginess to the dry patch is very much minimized. So if you have dry patches, I recommend you do use a damp beauty blender. It's going to really help. So let's have a chat about this foundation, and I will absolutely be doing a wear test in this foundation as well. By the way, I've just filmed a review of the Huda Beauty glowish bronzer, which is what I've currently got on. You gotta go check that out. Like seriously, after this video, go check out that video. Now, in terms of the luminous silk is beautiful. It really is such a stunning foundation. It applies so well into the skin, both with a brush and with a beauty blender. Either way, I haven't found the application to be difficult. It spreads quite easily and it's quite maneuverable. So I really enjoyed how this foundation applies. I didn't have to work hard or anything like that. Of course, you can manipulate the finish of this foundation, make it a little bit more dewy if you use more of a hydrating base, or if you want it to be a little bit more matte, just make sure you're using sort of oil controlling skincare underneath, and then you'll get more of a matte finish. However, this is more or less a matte foundation. Now, in terms of this sticking to my dry patches, so I tend to get a dry patch right here on my forehead. This sticks to my dry patch just a little bit, so not too much, probably very similar to my Dior foundations, just a teeny tiny bit, nothing too concerning. Of course, if I use a beauty blender, then it really doesn't stick as much. For example, today I used a beauty blender which was nice and damp, and that extra hydration and of course the patting motion just means that the foundation hasn't really clung to my dry patch on my forehead, which is amazing. Now, looking at the ingredient list, it has quite a few fragrance ingredients, unfortunately. So it does have perfume fragrance that's towards the bottom, and it also has those fragrance ingredients like limonene and linalool towards the middle of that ingredient deck. And it has denatured alcohol, which is probably what gives this foundation this really lovely texture. It's the fifth ingredient, so I'm not particularly happy with the ingredient list. Yes, it applies beautifully. Yes, it looks beautiful. Probably not the best for people with sensitive skin types. In terms of oxidization, I don't really see this foundation oxidizing. It might turn a little bit darker just because of my natural oils will come through, and I have combo skin, so I do get greasy throughout the day quite easily, and so it might just become a slightly darker just because of that oil production, but it doesn't really oxidize, so I haven't had that issue with this foundation. But when we do the wear test, you'll be able to see for yourself whether that's the case or not. And in terms of coverage, this foundation is pretty good at coverage, so I do think that this foundation can probably go up to full coverage, but just borderline. I'm going to say borderline medium to full coverage. And unfortunately, the problem with getting the wrong shade is that you can't really wear a foundation up to full coverage if it is the wrong shade, because it looks very, very apparent. The only way I can really wear this foundation is because I'm wearing a turtleneck, so this color isn't really jarring, or it doesn't really look obvious. If my chest was exposed, I wouldn't, let's just say I wouldn't be wearing this shade up to full coverage. I'd be wearing up to probably light medium coverage. Just before we head into the wear test, if you're curious about my makeup today, I will put details of my makeup in the description box. But just to quickly tell you, I am wearing the new Pat McGrath Venus in Fleurs. This is the voyeuristic vixen palette, so that is what currently I have on my eyes today. Let me know if you want a review of this palette. I haven't filmed it yet. I feel like there's a lot of reviews on YouTube already for this palette. Everybody seems to really love it, but if you really want me to review it, just let me know in the comment section below, so that way I can work on filming this for you. Hey guys, so it's been 8 hours and this is what the foundation looks like after 8 hours of wear. It's definitely on. It has not faded. So I'm just going to quickly blot. You can see that I'm quite shiny on my cheeks, my forehead, and that's normal for me. I have combination skin, so I do get oily in my forehead, on my cheeks. I didn't blot and I definitely didn't powder my face today. So I'm just going to blot right now. Let's get rid of some of that shine. So this is what the foundation looks like after 8 hours. As you can see, it's pretty long wearing. I mean, for an 8-hour mark, it looks really, really good. My dry patch on my forehead still looks good. There really isn't that much clinginess. Then the only area I would say isn't the best for my skin type is really around my mouth area. So this is where I've tried to build up the foundation and it has caked on me just a teeny tiny bit. I wonder if you can see that. Just around here, but it's very, very small. It's actually not a lot at all, so I'm honestly not concerned about the little tiny amount of cakiness that I'm getting around my mouth area, because we are in winter here in New Zealand and this area in winter for me does tend to get dry. So my overall thoughts for this foundation is that this is a really good foundation. I can see why a lot of people love it. It is absolutely beautiful. It's long wearing. It has a very nice finish. So am I going to buy this foundation? I think at this time, probably not. I don't actually feel very motivated to buy this foundation, which is interesting because it is a really good foundation. But it does have that alcohol. It does have fragrance. I already have foundations that have alcohol and fragrance, so I'm trying to avoid at least alcohol, if not fragrance, a little bit. So I'm a bit sad that this formula does contain those ingredients, but if you are interested in it, I do recommend it. It's beautiful. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other foundation requests, let me know in the comment section below. I recently actually purchased the Bobbi brown foundation. So this is the Skin Long Wear Weightless foundation in the shade Golden Natural. So I'm going to pop it right here. So this is a shade W058 Golden Natural. There were two big reasons why I bought this foundation. One, this doesn't have any alcohol, so I'm really, really happy about that. It does have a lot of fragrance, which is annoying, but at least it doesn't have alcohol. So it kind of ticks one of my criteria. Then the shade is really, really good. This is like almost like a neutral yellow undertone. It doesn't have any olive undertones, but the color match for me is so good that I decided to pick this up. I also really enjoyed the finish of this. It is a matte foundation. So if you want to see a review of this foundation, let me know. I can absolutely do that. So this is one of my recent purchases. Tried a sample, really enjoyed it, and here it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. See ya.